Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will host the Chinese President Xi Jinping later this year for an informal summit, an Indian Foreign Ministry spokesman said in a statement on Wednesday. During the first informal summit in Wuhan, Chinese President Xi Jinping had accepted the invitation of Prime Minister Modi to visit India for the next informal summit in 2019, is what an MEA statement said. The two sides are in touch through diplomatic channels to finalize the date and venue of the meeting. Both leaders have met several times over the past year to diffuse tensions and bolster trade ties after a military standoff at their high-altitude Himalayan border in 2017 rekindled fears of war between the two Asian nations. Prime Minister Modi may also hold his first bilateral meeting with US President Donald Trump in over 2 years on the sidelines of the G20 summit in June in Osaka, in Japan. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the potential and challenges of Sino-Indian ties. Joining me on the program today are TCA Rangachari, former ambassador, Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation, and Harshvi Pant, Head, Strategic Studies, Observer Research Foundation. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ambassador, I'd like to begin the program with you. Let's first analyze where Sino-Indian bilateral relationship stands at the moment and how do we take it forward?
Well, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, 2017, if you take that as a kind of a departure point, since then things have only improved. Now it's almost 2 years since Doklam. And during the course of these 2 years, there has been a very conscious and I think very possibly successful effort to try and put the relationship back on rails. You had high-level visits from both sides. And today, as you look at it, as the Prime Minister is going to assume office for his second term, the issues and the challenges in the relationship are more or less the same as they have been in the first term and during earlier years. The fact is that we are two neighbors, two large neighbors. There is much that we can do with each other for the good. At the same time, there are also potential that could create problems between the two countries that would not be helpful insofar as regional stability and peace is concerned, as bilateral relationship is concerned. And therefore, we have to find ways and means in which we can work together. You raised this question of what has happened in the course of the last year or so since the Wuhan. One good thing that has happened is that from the statistics that have been put out by our Ministry of Commerce, the trade deficit has declined somewhat. It has come down by about $10 billion. We are still minus 53. And if you look at the overall global trade surplus of China of 350 billion, then virtually 15–16% of that global surplus comes from the trade with India. So we have a long way to go in trying to bring down that deficit. Obviously, no country today tries to balance the relationship so totally that it is one way or the other zero. But 50 is a very large sum, and we have to bring that down significantly. The other questions that are there between the two countries, promoting greater people-to-people exchange, high-level dialogue, creating trust, these were some of the elements that had been mentioned at the Wuhan summit. Those are, I think, a continuing process. And as far as I can see, the government of India, Chinese side, Chinese government are both making that effort. It is going to be a slow process, so we should not expect a quick result. It's not going to be a T20, it's more likely to be a 5-day test match. And possibly also a 5-match series rather than a 3-match or 2-match series.
So since the World Cup is round the corner, not even a 1 day is what you're suggesting.
Yes, quite right, quite right. But I think the signs are positive, and the latest message that has come, congratulatory message from President Xi Jinping, is also a very hopeful, positive message. And certainly, I think that on the Indian side, there is a great deal of goodwill for China and for India-China relations. So things look good, while the problems remain pretty much the same as they have been in the first term.
Absolutely. All right, let me bring in Captain Bansal into the picture now. A few things have happened. First, of course, the technical hold lifted by China as far as Masood Azhar is concerned. But let's not forget, Pakistan is an all-weather friend as far as China is concerned. So are these going to play a role in the Sino-Indian bilateral relationship?
See, there is no doubt that Pakistan will always be a factor, but please understand, when we look at Sino-Pak relations, last 10 months in Pakistan, the foreign direct investment from China has virtually dried up, despite the CPEC. So, despite CPEC being a very, very important prong, the fact is that there are serious apprehensions within China. The large number of Chinese business people have actually raised questions about the viability of CPEC project. The Chinese vice president was there actually in Pakistan recently. There has also been problems between China and Pakistan on cultural issues. There has been a big issue of Chinese men marrying Pakistani women and accusations in Pakistani press that they are being trafficked to China for basically prostitution and organ trade and things like that. And then Chinese embassy coming out with a counter statement saying that no, nothing of that sort and all those issues. So that is one part. But as far as India-China relations are concerned, please understand, if we look at it from the time Modi came to power in 2014, there has been a significant improvement. I'm not talking about 2017 aberration when we had Doklam and the ties went up. But please remember 2014, I think almost after 6 decades, we had a public reception for a Chinese president here in India, public reception in Ahmedabad, which was a very, very significant factor. And I think rightfully what we have realized is that today's China is quite different from China of 1962. It's no longer an ideological state, it's more a territorial state. So it's not governed by communism, but it's governed more by Chinese nationalism. Even though, quote unquote, lip service is paid to communism and Marx and all those people. But the fact is it's a territorial state, and to that extent, please understand, there is no existential ideological conflict between today's India and today's China. We do have a border dispute, which is extremely complex and cannot be resolved overnight. Now, this fact must be understood. But besides that, there is huge amount of congruence. And India's strength vis-a-vis China is actually soft power. And as Ambassador Rangachari said, the trade deficit which we have been facing is actually coming down. It will not, you cannot balance it overnight because there is a huge adverse payment. It will take time for you to come to that level. But what we need to focus is on India's soft power. And you will be surprised that when you go interiors of China, you find yoga, Bollywood. These have enormous reach. In fact, this is where we need to focus, because unlike in India, an average Chinese perception of India is not negative. See, whereas in India, by and large, you go to the rural areas, people have a very negative impression of China because of 62. Unfortunately, since Chinese are more or less ignorant, their perceptions about India are not so negative. So it's far more easy to build up. In fact, you'll find most Chinese have a fairly positive view about India because of cultural and other reasons. So to that extent, I think building it up is easy. And what is good is that the two leaders have struck a bonhomie.
Right.
Wuhan was the first step, and we need to follow it up. Hopefully this time it should be in India if they at all want to go in for a informal talks like the way they went ahead for Wuhan. But as I said, there will be always certain problems, but we need to actually keep them frozen and move forward.
All right, all right. Professor, I'd like to bring you into the picture now. You know, Alok Bansal was talking about focus, and we need to focus on certain areas, especially soft power is what he suggested. Are there any other areas that need special attention as far as the bilateral relationship is concerned?
Well, you know, last time when the Wuhan summit happened, and I think it had a trifecta of issues on the table where it was deemed important that in Sino-Indian relations move forward along those axes. One of them was, of course, what to do about trade. How do you increase the volume of trade, as well as how do you decrease the deficit? The other was people-to-people connectivity between these two great nations. The third was, of course, the larger point was about, what do you do when you are looking at the neighborhood and the region. So there were a lot of talk about joint projects in Afghanistan, in Bangladesh that we have been talking about. Nothing substantive has yet materialized, but that was the start of a discussion. So I think when you are looking at what perhaps is happening in the world today and how rapidly the situation is evolving, in some ways, China is also under pressure. China is under pressure. The Trump policy of putting China under pressure has, in some ways, changed the dynamic with which China is now approaching the counterparts. I mean, many people, the argument has been that, look, Wuhan happened because India wanted to calm the temperatures and etc. But it was equally important that the Chinese wanted to bring India into that discourse because something was happening vis-a-vis China's approach to the world. So I think in that sense there is an opportunity here that perhaps can be tapped into, that this is a unique inflection point in Chinese economic evolution. They are being forced to change track. The kind of trade and technology conflict that is escalating from the West will have huge repercussions as far as China is concerned, both in terms of its economic evolution domestically as well as its regional engagement. And the pushback that China has received on BRI is a reality check. If you see the recent summit, it was very interesting. They were backtracking on a lot of these issues. They were trying to ameliorate some of the concerns. They were making a point that they are learning from what had gone wrong. So I think that larger frame around China provides an opportunity to India to also situate its own relationship in a different context. And I think that was Wuhan was the start of that process. And hopefully the next informal summit, whenever it happens, will lead to more focused approach towards where potentially we can go. Can we enhance people-to-people connectivity? Can we enhance regional connectivity? Can we enhance the kind of issues? Or can we do a proper discussion on trade where, of course, you're not going to bring the deficit down, but can you expand the basket in terms of what India can deliver? So I think we are looking at a rapidly evolving situation, both from Chinese perspective as well as from India. And hopefully this allows the two countries new possibilities of engagement.
Sure, certainly. On this point that the professor raised, Ambassador, that of China being under pressure because of the ongoing tariff war between the US and China, is that an opportunity for India? Is this something that both China and India can work towards and help each other?
Well, I think there are two sides to this. First of all, this is not the first time when you have difficulties in Sino-US relations, and that works in some way to the advantage of India. If you go back 1970, that famous Mao smile, similarly, if you come down, there have been other periods when there have been differences, and that's worked for us. At the same time, situated as we are, given the kind of problems that we have with China, we have to be very cautious in how we play this. We cannot do the kind of thing that China did with the Americans during their problems with the Soviet Union. So they, from 1949 till 1972, they were virtually in the, or maybe few years, 68, 69, they were in the Soviet lap. And then suddenly after 72, they switched over and became totally pro-American and anti-Soviet. We cannot do that. Partly because of our own history, our own ethos, partly because, to my mind, large countries cannot behave like this because they leave their own people very confused in regard to the direction in which the country is headed. I don't think in the long run it served China very well either. But anyway, the fact is that we have to be cautious. We must take advantage of this situation, what is now very usually called as the balancing power. So, we have to have good relations, friendly relations with China. You have to have good relations, friendly relations with the United States.
On this
we have
issue
economic interests on both sides.
On this issue of balancing of power, the same seems to be happening in West Asia as well with the whole Iran issue.
Well, it all depends upon the kind of leverage that we are able to build with one and the other. In the case of Sino-US difficulties, I think both China and the United States see India as a country with whom they want to have good relations, and somehow there is this feeling that if India is on the same side, then it helps in dealing with the third party. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. There are many commonalities between India. The Chinese side never ever tires of saying that our commonalities outweigh our differences. They also say that we must make every effort to ensure that differences should not be made into disputes. Now, these are all signals that they want to have good. At the same time, they're very concrete difficulties. And unfortunately, as I see it, these are not easily resolvable and not resolvable in the short term in any case.
So the status quo is going to continue?
I think the status quo, to the extent to which it does not remain disadvantageous to us, does not harm us, is not adverse to us. The problem, for example, in the case of the border, to be very specific, it's a question of management so that we don't have the kind of situation that we had in 2013, 2014, again Doklam and so on. those kinds of incidents give a huge setback to the relationship, particularly at the psychological level, because whatever good work you do, one such incident sets the government back insofar as molding public opinion, shaping public opinion for friendship with China, for good relations with China. And therefore, it is even in China's interest, to my mind, not to allow any such incident to happen.
Right.
And fortunately, since 2014, it has not happened on the direct India-China border. Doklam, in that sense, could be an extension because it is more on the Bhutan side.
junction.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So, taking the discussion forward now, several analysts, commentators have been suggesting that this is going to be India's and China's century. So, do you see both countries moving in that direction, and what needs to be done so as to make this our century?
There is no doubt, I think, that the two countries are the fastest growing large economies. And I think a global economic balance is slowly shifting eastwards. And because US policies in last few years have been so erratic and knee-jerk in some issues, that there are issues which will come up. And India, China, I think, have been moving closer. And as Professor Pant said, I think this US-China trade war, it would be wrong to say so, but the fact is that it does provide India with a huge opportunity, because both sides actually, I think Chinese are also, because Chinese have started feeling the pressure. Please understand, for the first time, I think Chinese foreign exchange reserves dipped. Although they have a huge amount, they also had for the first time a deficit, trade deficit and things like that. So I think there is a certain amount of impact that's happening on China, and China would, and now considering that its trade with US is in jeopardy, Indian market is a huge market, and China cannot afford to forego that. Having said that, there is no doubt in my mind that the border dispute is unresolvable at this point of time. In fact, it is a very vexed dispute, and it cannot be resolved in near future. So it will have to be left for some time, and for that I think we need to build up good relations in other fields. And management of border is of course an essential. For some strange reasons, Chinese are not even willing to delineate the line of actual control. While one can understand the claim lines and things like which Chinese have been fluctuating, I think a time has come where I think the two sides should delineate the line of actual control, so that at least the type of skirmishes that we had in 2013-14 are avoided. To my mind, for furthering India-China relations, I think we should explore a possibility of a road link from Karakoram to Kandla. That would actually finish off the CPAC or whatever the utilization or relevance of CPAC is concerned. That would also to some extent sanctify our line of actual control with the China, also provide employment to that region which has actually suffered because of this India-China conflict, because the whole Ladakh region was primarily a trading hub where people would trade. And I think we need to make a concerted effort for taking our soft power push forward, because as far as China is concerned, spirituality, yoga, all these things have to go in a planned manner, because please understand, for 7 decades of communist rule, the Chinese authorities tend to view religious institutions and things associated with religions with a lot of suspicion. There was some time back when they issued an advisory saying that India-based cults are dangerous or something like that, something to that effect. So to my mind, I think we need to go ahead and ensure that people-to-people contact between India and China enhances, though we have actually allowed them e-visas and things like that. I think the reciprocal arrangement has still not come through. Also road links. I think there is a section of India which is still extremely apprehensive of anything Chinese. And for that reason, I think Stillwell Road or things like that have not, there are still opposition to that. People believe that Chinese goods will flood Indian markets. But the fact is that this bogey has been proved to be wrong. I think about a decade back, people would say that Chinese goods will flood Indian markets. It's not happened. And I think Indian industry has still survived the Chinese onslaught. And I'm sure goods can always move in both directions.
Okay. Okay. Professor, as far as areas of cooperation are concerned for the future, what could they be?
See, I think one of the ways in which the leadership in two countries have tried to look at this, especially post Doklam, is to once again go to the early 1990s model, which was to anchor the bilateral relationship in the larger global framework. So you remember that time when we used to talk of Russia, China, India trilaterals, and that used to be this thing about what these three countries are proposing is a sort of a pushback against unilateralism, unipolar movement of America. And if you see since then, what happened for the next few years was this engagement between China and India on global trade issues, on global environmental issues, where the two countries actually came together in Doha round of trade negotiations, Copenhagen negotiations. And I think that seems to be coming back in some ways because of Trump administrations. And the Trump administration's disregard for the global economic order or a pushback against that order, I think has brought India and China in some strange ways together. So I think there is a lot of potential that is now being, can now be explored, where perhaps can we for the moment once again anchor our bilateral relationship in that larger sort of a global landscape. But I must also, I think it must be acknowledged that China is not going to give up on the bilateral issues. So we need to be aware of the what is actually happening on the ground. For example, the construction along the border continues. There are some very significant key points where they are building up their strength, where they have learned their lessons from Doklam. I don't think one can expect that just because we want China to mend fences with us, given the sort of a geopolitical context we are talking about, that somehow the differences would go away. I think the question is whether we can manage those differences in a more civilized manner than we did at Doklam. And that, I think, will be tested as this engagement moves forward. And I think this recognition in Beijing that Mr. Modi has come back and has come back with a bigger mandate, with a stronger mandate. Perhaps that is again the push that you need to take India seriously, and you need to again isolate the more contentious issues from the ones that can be managed in the short to medium term. Because as we have talked about, that in the long term, most of these issues can be, you can always say border is very contentious, some of the other issues are more contentious, so what to do? But I think in the short to medium term, you need to generate that optimism in the relationship. And you can do that if there are a few projects that are more promising, that can be accomplished, that can give a sense of reassurance to both countries that we are getting this relationship back on rails. All right.
Closing comments now from all my guests, starting first with you, Ambassador. I mean, what's the best way forward? Do we keep away from the contentious issues and just take up, the smaller issues and probably stay at that level, or keep bringing up the contentious issues as well and see where they go?
One very quick point in follow-up of what Professor Pant was saying, and this is something that I have been saying since my days in the Ministry of External Affairs 25 years ago. In order to be able to successfully manage the differences on the border, we need to have our border preparations also highly prioritized, and it should be, for example, roads, for example, the housing, etc. for our people. These are all the issues that the government must attach priority to, and I hope that this government will, really take very, very quick and solid action in the course of the coming 2, 3, 5 years. Having said that, broadly, politically, I think we need to enhance trust, which means there must be more exchanges and more dialogue. Economically, we must promote trade in order to bring down our deficit, and also at the same time promote Chinese investment in India. If the Chinese are willing, Indian investment in China. We must expand on people-to-people exchanges between the two sides. And then all the areas of cooperation that are possible, we must try and look at them to see how we can further the relationship, how we can benefit from all that the Chinese are doing within China in terms of research, education, R&D, science and technology, etc. There is a degree of cooperation, but that needs to be vastly expanded.
Right. Okay. Captain Bansal, as far as the informal summit itself is concerned, it's still a little while away. There are several other occasions where Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi could possibly meet on the sidelines of the SCO, G20 and so on and so forth. Can we expect something out of that?
Certainly. As I said, China is under pressure and China would like to actually reach out. This is the first opportunity they'll get it in SCO, and I think they would like to build up on that. And as far as contentious issues are concerned, I personally feel that those contention issues need to be managed at this stage. Their resolution at this stage is virtually impossible, and we need to move forward on those issues where we can move forward. As regards border management and things like that are concerned, this government has taken a lot of steps for the first time. I think we have operationalized DBO and Chushul airfields. We have actually gone in Arunachal and east-west road, which construction is being done. Because for too long, for decades, Indian security establishment believed that building roads and infrastructure in border areas would actually bring Chinese down, as if there were roads which could carry troops only in one direction. I think this wisdom has finally dawned on them that roads can carry troops in both directions, and I think there's nothing to get worried. Chinese are not 10 feet tall or something like that. And I think I personally am extremely optimistic of significant improvement in India-China relations over the next 5 years.
All right. And Professor, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Well, I think we need to enter into this engagement with the Chinese with very clear-eyed expectations from what is achievable and what is not. I think what is not achievable is Chinese are not going to change their national interests because they want to have good relations with India. I think they have very clearly laid out a marker, and they will pursue that to that end. And so I think we should be also clear about what we intend to do. As we build relations with India, it's important with China, we should be clear that we need to build our own strength as well. So whether it's on the border, whether it is economically or financially, as well as with other like-minded countries. I think this idea that if we engage with other countries, Chinese will get offended, that needs to be junked, because we can't give China a veto over what we do. So I think there are a lot of engagements that we need to have in the region, bilaterally, trilaterally, multilaterally, where China should be one of the factors, not the deciding factor in how we engage with the region. And I think if we get our house in order, I don't think engaging with China and then dealing with the bigger problems should be an issue. Because if we are confident in ourselves, I think we can be confident. We should be able to deal with China more confidently.
All right, then. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. What's coming out of the discussion is that we need to put our interests first and be clear with what India wants as far as China is concerned. And the status quo is likely to continue, at least for the time being, is what the panelists are suggesting. With that, it's a wrap. And thank you to all my panelists for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. See you again next time.